Hey everybody, we're meeting and greeting today our fellow group member, Anitra Butler-Ngugi.
Yes. Yeah.
Google, only Ngugi. And I'm so excited that we get to do this today.
Yes.
You know, Anitra had, one of the things she mentioned was that she was really into beta testing with end users, and so that caught my attention. I was like, oh, maybe you come on and talk about that sometime.
Okay.
And she mentioned that she presented on this topic at the VSTE conference, which stands for Virginia Society of Technology Educators.
Yes.
So that's fantastic. So Nika is a presenter at conferences, which is something I really look up to. I think it's fabulous. The Associate Professor of Teacher Education
Yes.
at
Yes.
Prince George's
Community College. Yes.
And you can tell us about really cool things like Heutagogy and ubuntugogy, which I think is amazing. So I'm learning so much from you, and thank you so much for being here to say hi and get to know everybody in the group.
My pleasure. This is exciting. Thank you for inviting me.
Here, and you know, this is a great way for us to just talk about, you know, what's your career like, and what, you know, everybody has a different story and a different experience of this field of instructional design and learning development. So tell us a little bit about your career as an ID so far, and in education, and your specialty and your superpowers and all that good stuff.
Okay, well, I actually stumbled into instructional design. I would say I entered in through the back door, if you will, because I started out as a classroom teacher. I taught grades 4, 5, and 6 in the state of Maryland. And I was pursuing my master's degree. And in looking, I saw that there was something called instructional design for online learning. And I was curious. I'm like, what is that? I've never heard of that. And that was like in the early 2000s when e-learning and distance learning were just kind of blooming, and people weren't really sure about it and its prospects. And so I decided to pursue a master's in it to see what it's all about. And I just imagine myself sitting at home in my jammies, teaching online. But I realized, it's way more to it than that. So I ended up getting a master's in instructional design for online learning. And I am a subject matter expert in teacher education, with a focus on literacy and working with students with special needs. But I also have a focus on building expertise, which is one of my favorite books from my instructional design program by Ruth Clark. All of her work is fantastic because she does a lot of scientifically based research on practices that build expertise, don't distract learning, and they do research on e-learning. So a lot of her work is based on real research. Mm-hmm. And my other is the science of learning. So this one is psychology of learning for instruction. So I would say that I specialize in looking at learning objectives and making sure that we can unpack them and see what is required of the learner and what should we do as a result to get them closer to that learning outcome. And so as they say, pedagogy is the problem. So when a learner comes to you, our problem is to figure out how do we best structure their experience so that they can walk away with that outcome and still feel like they got something.
Yeah. Is the outcome you're talking about would you also use the term performance goal? Because I've been saying
Yes.
goal a lot.
Yes.
And
So it
so,
could be a performance goal, like what it is that the employer or the individual wants to see as a performance, but it could also be a learning goal too. Like, what is it that I learned as a result that I may not be able to necessarily perform, but I do have this knowledge. So it's kind of like twofold. Yes.
so you're one of us, like an accidental instructional designer, but then
Yes.
you're trying to get into it.
Yes. So I got into it through higher ed, actually. So I was in the classroom and I got a job as an adjunct professor at the community college where I'm at now. And they were saying, we're going to put our courses online. And I couldn't imagine, how do you take a teaching course, showing someone how to teach and put that online? And so I grappled with that. And at that time, that was around 2005, 2006, teaching online was just throwing your PowerPoints up and just responding to a discussion board. And I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to teach somebody how to teach a kid how to read online with a PowerPoint? They need to see it. They need to see me model it. Not knowing that in the future, all these tools that would be available to us to make that learning experience just as powerful as if they were in a face-to-face classroom. So that's how I stumbled into it through the community college.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you also freelancing then right at the moment, or
Well, yeah, I did have a couple freelancing gigs. One, I actually got, the person reached out to me on LinkedIn. So I was like, wow, how did you find me? And they found me through my Instagram. So it's amazing when you put stuff out there, people find you, they track you down and they say, hey, I think I have a gig for you that you would like. And so that was the one on LinkedIn was like my first experience with doing freelance. I had no idea what I was getting into. And the first thing they said, okay, so send us an invoice. And I'm like, oh, I have to send you an invoice? I'm not used to that. So there's a lot of tricks of the trade that I had to learn when I entered into that world of freelancing.
you're an accidental freelancer too? That's
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
I mean, that's like everyone's dream. Like these people will just come to me and ask me to help them out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know this current generation likes that work from anywhere concept. And I think that's great too. But I'm from the generation where you go to work, you have to sit there. And so the freelancing thing was totally new to me. So how I would define it, I would say it's unsecured freedom. So you're free, but you don't necessarily have the security of a steady paycheck and your insurance and all that, the benefits. So it's like a balance. You have to figure out how to work all those pieces. And so I haven't done that part yet. I'm working on that.
Yeah, it's like a which I love about it at the same time because it you never get complacent. You're not just like feeling like you're secure and you're gonna coast a little bit. There's not
Yeah.
coasting.
Yes.
It's like a very engaging, and your success is directly proportionate to the effort you're putting in and how effective you are. Not necessarily that you're gonna, have to work 80 hours a week. It's just,
Right.
but you have to, do certain things, and you have to have that holistic view. Like you're not an employee anymore. You're a business owner,
Yes.
so you do all the pieces. You wear all the hats.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You really, like what you said, it keeps you on your toes. So you have to stay fresh because you never know what the client needs. And you got a potential client where you can maybe deliver on some of the pieces, but then there's a piece that you can't. You don't want to tell them no. You want to quickly learn it and deliver.
Which I think is why it's so great that we have each other and this
Yes.
growing, that you don't have to do it by yourself.
Yes.
You can reach out and connect and get, bounce ideas or get advice or get ramped up quickly or bring someone in as a team member,
Yes.
whatever we need, right? It's the power of the group.
Exactly. Yes, especially if you have a great project manager, because when the project that I was working on, the person that I worked under was overseeing the project. So she was kind of like the second set of eyes and then the encourager, because being new and green, I'm like, "Ooh, okay, do I belong here?" So I did have that imposter syndrome that I had to combat. I say, "Okay, I'm talking the talk. Can I do the walk?" And so sometimes when your person, that project manager that's in charge, will say, "Hey, you can do it. Hey, submit this section. Oh, you left this part out." So it's good to have a team that helps you, because and feel that you're not alone. Because sometimes you can feel that you're alone.
So true. Yeah. And, yeah, your mind can trick you into thinking it's too much.
Yes.
This how I can't do this or whatever. And
Yes.
true, everything is figure outable. And when you have a group to come back to or a team to come back to say this is what's going on, you get ideas, you figure it out.
Exactly. You can figure it out.
Yeah. So what would you say is most challenging for you right now or in the field in general?
Most challenging, I would say, with each generation, the group of learners that you get changes. And so here we are. I'm getting folks that are just entering into the workforce or into a college level course room. And the millennials, if you will, I don't want to say all of them, but they are a different breed. And so trying to tap into how they learn and designing instruction that supports that has been quite a challenge, because I'm learning that a lot of them don't necessarily want to read. They don't want to have too much text. Not saying that they're not readers. It's just that they don't want to click on a screen and see all this text. And so I'm trying to balance text and audio and video and other mediums to really keep them engaged. That's what I'm facing now. I actually met with a student who said, "Oh, I feel overwhelmed in this course." And I said, "Well, what is causing the anxiety?" And it's just a matter of focusing and buckling down. That's what he came to. And I said, okay. So then I'm thinking, okay, as an instructional designer, what can I do to get the learner to not feel overwhelmed when they come to this page, to focus and to, I guess, break it down into breadcrumbs so that way they can process it. They're still learning and not feeling too overwhelmed.
Back to that beta testing, I've been looking around and playing around with, and my husband's been playing around with usability testing just to see what that's like. And I had done it in a past life for a couple different projects and teams. And, it's like getting that real time feedback.
Yes.
When we design things, the way we think people are going to see it and interact with the page is completely, maybe one person's experience or one segment of the population's experience, and then there's all these other.
Exactly.
So it's like we are now also emerging. This is one of the conversations that was in the group recently about how like there's this expanding set of skills we need.
Yes.
Because we need to take into consideration design. We're living in this connected digital online world where things are designed for us and very usable and easy in so many other areas. And so our learning has to keep up with that. Like
exactly.
That's easy to use, pick up and use as an iPad.
Right. It's a craft. It really is. And so in talking about that beta testing, that is something that I was working with last year, and I'm still working with it this year. And I presented that at the VSTE conference to kind of get some feedback from my peers. And they actually were like, yeah, we should be doing this. And these were high school teachers and middle school teachers that were working with kids who are actually learning online. And that's the new trend now. A lot of these kids are taking online courses as early as middle school. Now, the course may not be fully online, but there's some portions of it that require some online learning. And so with the beta testing, I was explaining to the teachers that the students should be able to give you some of that feedback as you're building the course. And so the first step I told them was to give them the direction that you're going. Give them the map. Let them know, hey, here are our course learning outcomes. Here are the learning objectives that I must cover. Out of that, I want you to set some goals for yourself. So the teachers were calling it a must do and a may do. These are the must do's. I have to do it. The state requires it. However, the may do is your own learning goal that we pull from that. And from that piece, the next step is, okay, you can choose what sorts of readings, what sorts of exercises that you would like to do that would satisfy that learning goal. Now, the pushback that I got was, well, all the students don't necessarily know, what they can do, and how to necessarily satisfy it, how to learn that learning outcome. And that is true. You have kids or adults all along the continuum. You have some that need remediation. You have some that, I have this knowledge, I'm a self-directed learner, I don't need you to tell me, to spoon feed this to me. So when you have that mixed bag, it's like, okay, what do I do in that instance? And so that's what we were talking about. Well, perhaps you can take those self-directed learners and have them to create content for those learners that are in need of remediation. So if I'm an adult learner and I know this concept, but my employer is requiring me to take this course, then I can perhaps design something, we call it a learning object, that can become an open educational resource that I can share with folks that may not know that concept, because we're all at a different part on the continuum.
Yeah, and you're talking about building that into your design.
Yes, and building that in. So
Yeah.
because you'll have folks that are at different parts, folks that are experts and folks that are novices. So when they are all in before me, how do I meet the needs of all of them? And so that's why we were talking about doing a learner analysis, making sure that you have the learner's profile. And that can be a little difficult depending on how many learners you have. Some courses you might have hundreds of learners. Some courses you may have 5 or 6. So how do I get a learner profile on all of those? And so the quick way that I say is, well, show them the course learning outcomes, show them the requirements, and have them set a learning goal for themselves, and have them tell you, rate themselves. Hey, I know this. Hey, I don't know this. And depending on that, those folks that pretty much can teach the course, but they have to take it as a requirement, they can in turn create learning objects that can become open ed resources.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like at Amazon, we call that a mechanism. Like you baked it in.
Okay.
It's automatic. Like
yes,
like addressed this need within your system.
exactly.
And you're talking about, these are not just e-learning, click-throughs where you're taking this as an individual learner. This is a group social experience. This is a MOOC, maybe almost like you're all taking it together.
Yes,
Live, but asynchronous.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
some synchronous parts and some asynchronous parts.
Yeah, that can definitely be built in, and and that should be an option. And that's what I'm grappling with right now, going live with my learners. I got all the equipment. I told my learners, okay, the designated time, according to the college, is between 6 and 8:45. This is a hybrid course, so I'm going to go live during those times. Now, I have yet to have folks join me. So I'm like, okay, maybe going live at this time isn't, suitable for all of the people, but I have it as an option. So yeah, it's like baking it all in. And so with that beta testing, as we are going through each phase and assessing that learning outcome, I'm also assessing the student's satisfaction with that module. Okay, and then I put it in the student's hands. Okay, so what can we do to improve this? Now remember your learning goals. What can I do? Did I help you meet your goal or not? And so we're getting that feedback along the way. So it's like constant iteration, which students are not used to that. They want to sit and get and just check it off.
Right.
But when you engage them in that process, they're like, what? Wait, I thought you were the instructor, like, well, no, we can co-design this.
Yeah, so your live sessions, are they're not considered an office hour? You're talking about like some other piece of the puzzle. So maybe this is a live lecture
Yes.
opportunity.
Yes.
Okay.
So The class is set up as a hybrid, so we meet 5 times within the semester. But the days that we don't meet, I told the learners, I'm going to go live. So
Mhm.
for those of you who still need that face-to-face interaction, I'm still making myself available to you during the time that you registered for.
Yeah.
So when I sat down and I went live, I had nobody. I'm like, no views. Hello, is anybody there? So I went ahead and I did the live session and I put it up on YouTube so that they can still access it. But I find that it's right now at a snail's pace. It's like, okay, it's not hot yet.
Learning curve for them too.
Yes.
Um, they didn't connect the dots, or
Ex-
something like that.
Yeah, it could be that. And then it could be they don't want to sit at their computer watching me yak, yak, yak. So then I thought, okay, how can I make this more engaging? Maybe build in some polls, maybe do a live Zoom and they can see themselves instead of me just on the camera live.
Yes, and actually, you being live on YouTube, they might have been there, and you may not have seen their comments.
And that could be it too, because I'm still learning this whole live
Yeah,
thing,
like you have to
you
build
know.
in, I think, APIs or something. I remember going live on YouTube thinking I was alone, and I really wasn't.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so somebody might have been there.
And I just didn't know.
I just didn't know. Yeah, you're doing my dream. Like, I have always wanted to do. Like, I took some distance, like some online classes when I was at community college, and I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to be the person.
Yes.
You're doing my
Yeah.
dream
See?
job. So cool. So cool. Well, do you have mentors? Are you willing to mentor others? Like, can you talk about mentorship a little bit?
Well, yeah, mentoring is very important. And yes, I do have mentors because the technology always changes and course design is constantly changing. So I have mentors virtually, and then I have a couple at the college where I am, like our lead instructional designer. I will go to him and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? He's actually come in and observed my class. So yes, I believe in mentoring. And I have a young lady that actually found me online that said, hey, I'm not in instructional design, but I want to get into it. I'll be willing to work for you just to learn it. And so I set up that relationship where she can just play in a sandbox that I created for her. And we're exploring these instructional design principles and looking at all of the pieces that go into online learning, So yes, I'm open to mentoring.
Did you see the mentoring piece of the group? That there's a mentoring
No.
area?
Oh, I need to
So,
go in there and look at
yeah,
that.
if you look on the left-hand side of your screen, there's
Okay.
like when you receive discussion, units, files, all those different pages within the group. There's one
Okay.
mentorship, and you can sign up to find
Okay.
a mentor. There's a whole bunch of mentors in there, and you can
Oh,
become a mentor and put yourself in there, and so people can reach out to you.
okay.
Yeah, it's like kind of
That's
baked
good to
into
know.
Facebook groups. So
Okay, I'll have to go in there and check that out because I was so busy just reading the feed and what people are saying that it didn't dawn on me to, hey, look at some other parts.
yeah, it's in there. I know, and it's not like a normal part of every group either. Like, you have to
Yeah.
set it up, but it's kind of cool that Facebook built that in.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. I
Yeah,
will check that out today.
cool. That would be great. Well, what's the best way to get a hold of you if we want to reach you in the future? I know you shared your LinkedIn. You're the instructional design lady.
Yes, on Instagram. So definitely LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm also on Facebook as the instructional design lady as
Cool.
well.
Okay.
And I'm in your group, so you can definitely message me if you'd like. And I'm also on Twitter as the Instruct Lady.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Right on. Yeah, have to drop some of those links in.
Okay.
Out to you and connect to you. I know I connected to you on LinkedIn in our LinkedIn
Yes.
post, so that was great.
Yes.
It's been fun. Is there anything else you want to share before we jump off?
Well, before we jump off, I'd like to say the last thing that I'm diving in is something called Heutagogy,
Yeah.
which is, well, Dr. Abdul Bangura, he would say would be the next step above andragogy. So you have pedagogy, which is like learners not necessarily knowledgeable, they're novices to the information. Then you have andragogy where the learner has background knowledge on it, but they just might need a little bit of coaching to apply it. But then you have something called Heutagogy, which is the next step. And that's where the learner is totally self-directed and only needs you at an on-demand time. Like, I just need you for this piece and then I can move on. So I'm diving into that
So
whole
fascinating.
arena, which
Yeah.
is fascinating. So maybe in the future we can have a talk on that, and how do you build instruction for those experts who have it, they just need it for just-in-time training, you know?
That's a whole discussion of its own. And it's so
Yes,
fascinating. And the way you just described it made me think of it in a different way. That anyone, is it true? Anyone can kind of bounce between these depending on where they are.
absolutely. It's a cycle. So depending on where you are, you may need pedagogy, which is more hand-holding, versus I just need this tidbit of information to help me solve this problem. So that's that self-directed learner. So that's more heutagogy. Whereas andragogy might be, I need a little bit more coaching. I need you there. So yeah, you can bounce anywhere depending on the topic that you're diving into.
Important to like, because I've always just packaged it into like age groups.
Yes.
And
And that's what people have been doing.
but that's not my experience with my 8-year-old and my 10.
Right, because if your 8-year-old is a self-directed learner, then she may be in that realm of heutagogy, where she just needs enough information to keep her, to solve whatever problem she encountered, so that she can move on to whatever her learning goal is. So yes, it's not based on age, and that's the problem that we were making, and that's why they were saying andragogy is just not the right category for adult learners, because not all adult learners need that extra hand holding.
Right,
Some of them are self-directed. So
right.
that's where that heutagogy piece
Yes,
comes in.
I love that you just reframed it like that so that we can understand that it's not about age. It's
Yes.
about the need, the current need
Yes.
of that particular need on a
Exactly.
particular topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. This was fun. And if you want to have me on again, just let me know. And I don't know if your audience has any questions, but I'd be glad to
Oh,
interact with them in Facebook. And
I think we might have where we made it to this next level where we both showed up at the same time in Facebook, which is really cool. That was like, and now it's like I have to figure out the interactive piece because I
yes.
can't tell who's here with us,
Okay.
and I can't really. I see a couple of posts, but I don't think it's actually refreshing.
Ah,
So that's
gotcha.
gonna be the next thing for us to learn is how do we better like do this as a group,
Yes.
interact with people who are here actually listening live.
Yes.
So yeah,
And
let's
I need to learn that too. Maybe we can invite your Zoom specialist to come on and just kind
yeah,
of give us a step by step. That's what I need, step by step.
yeah.
So that's the pedagogy.
Oh, thanks, Anitra. You have a great
Thank
day. Thank
you. Thank you. You too. And I'll see you in the group.
you.
Okay.